you still known as McChins?
To some people, I guess, yeah.
How many chins have you got left?
I signed up to the gym today. I've probably got like 2 left. Need to get rid of them ASAP.
Oh, how many did you have?
Oh, dude, probably like 6. Back in the good
Six.
old days.
6 down to 2, 1 to go. How are you, Clutch?
Good, thank you, my friend. How are you?
You are one of the people I've wanted on this since the start. Like when I conceptualized the idea of this podcast through many nights with Elfish Guy helping me out, and he was like, "Oh, so who are some of the guests that you would have on?" Rattled off a few names. You are one of them. God, you've been around for a long time, haven't you? And
I
yet
have.
you still look about 20.
Oh, it's the 12-year-old mustache I have, I think. It's still trying to grow out, but it's pretty pathetic still. Other than that, yeah, I've been around for a while now, since the early days.
Hmm. I
Very early
don't know of
days.
many 12-year-olds that have got a mustache as glorious as that, but if there are
True.
any, I'd love to see it.
Doesn't grow in the middle.
I have the same thing. I mean, like, I got a
Yeah, at
little
least
bit.
you can go facial hair like down. I literally go nothing. I just got like a little
Oh,
neck beard down here.
you got like a. You just
Yeah.
skip the facial hair and you go straight for the
Yeah.
neck beard.
Straight to the neck beard, nothing else.
I love it. I love it. God, you've had a great few years, haven't you? In PUBG, just in and
Mm.
around the game as a whole, from pro player to now, of course, being an employee. It's really consumed your life, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely been a life changer. I got extremely lucky with like pretty much everything to do with PUBG, especially landing the job. But it's been I haven't regretted a single day, honestly. Like it's been so good. Probably the best
Mm.
times of my life, to be honest. I met like some of the coolest people as well, so I'm really lucky.
Very lucky, but as a player, you were pretty good. You probably deserved to play on some top teams, at least in the early days of OCE PUBG. Take us through
Yeah.
some of the beginnings, I guess, for your PUBG career.
So yeah, first, I mean, I got into the game like kind of everyone else. Some of my friends were playing, and I was like, "Oh, this game looks kind of cool." He's just playing it casually, and then kind of after like a few months, maybe 6 months or so, started grinding the leaderboards as like a solo, and kind of got up there on the leaderboards, and kind of realized like halfway through that I was pretty good at the game. I was always like interested in like I was always playing games that are like semi-high level, like League. I was master, and Overwatch. I was GM. I think I was just GM, just under GM. So I was always pretty competitive. Um, but yeah, and then a couple of teams were looking at me, specifically Cow from Incognito at the time, now Fury. Uh, kind of asked me to trial for them, and I trialed out for their team, and then ended up joining their kind of little family, which was nice. Which had Electric, Waikiki,
Kazi?
uh, Kazi, yeah, Kazi, and Doctor Robust, who was buddy. So that was the OG Incognito before Ezra was there, before everyone was there. That was
How did
the
how did
OG
you
squad.
how did you meet Cal?
I can't remember. I think he just messaged me on Discord and was like, "Hey, like, you seem alright. You want to play some games together?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" Oh, Electric as well. I don't know if I mentioned Electric. Electric was one of the good friends I met online as well. And yeah, he just messaged me on Discord, and I was like, "Yeah, I just played a few games with him, and we just got along so well. Like, it was just laughing like the whole time, and like immediately knew that I was like, yeah, I'll play some games with these guys."
But when you say that you would play some games with these guys, was it just as a group of mates that you would come on and play the game casually, or was it something that you realized could become competitive?
They were looking at playing competitively, but at the time, like none of the people on the team except for Electric had played like competitive games for one, but like competitive PUBG either. So we were completely new to like CG or anything like that. We started in amateur, and I think we won amateur, and then we went to like the I can't remember what it's called, just the CG, the highest CG league, and we started doing all right in there. And then we just progressively just got better and better as we went up.
And as you said, you hadn't really had very competitive background yourself, because
Mm.
a lot of these guys who started from the beginning in PUBG came from other games. We're seeing it nowadays too, when you've got other titles that have sort of come out, players cross playing, leaving CS to go to Valorant, or Overwatch to go to Valorant, things like that. Whereas PUBG, there was a lot of CS players that came over to PUBG, some Overwatch players came over to PUBG, things like that. But for yourself, it was very much just casual fun, and then whoops, I fell into this.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was just, it wasn't something I was looking for when I switched over. Like, I never played for a team in League or played for a team in Overwatch or anything like that. I just played it casually with friends.
Well, I was
And
going to
just
say,
evolved from there.
because you mentioned that you were nearly Grandmaster in Overwatch, and
Mm.
my time in Overwatch was from roughly the beginning all the way until late Contenders. A couple of seasons of Contenders had come out, so, and I knew pretty much everyone. I don't recall you
No, I
running
would
around.
just play
Definitely,
casually all the time.
yeah, definitely not playing around in the comps. That's for sure. So you never ran into me in solo queue.
I
I was High
literally,
Master.
I don't think so. I was playing with one of those streamers. He had blue hair. I can't remember who it was. He was an OCE guy. You probably know him, but I can't remember his name.
He had blue hair.
I think
That's
he had blue hair at some point.
that is rather specific though. There's not
He was
many
a
people with blue hair running around.
he was a DPS player. I can't remember. Anyway, I was playing in his bracket for a while, and then I ended up just getting worse and worse at the game, pretty much.
Was he from New Zealand?
No, he's Australian, I think.
Right. Okay.
He's pretty big now, I think. Switched to Fortnite probably, like everyone did.
Yeah, a lot of the Overwatch players did kind of switch to Fortnite at one stage. But going back to PUBG, you find yourself in this team. You find yourself a part of Incognito, and everything about it is now competitive. And you're playing these CGs. You might have played like the PUBG OCE leagues, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, so we pretty much entered every tournament possible. Like, we were incognito, so we weren't signed to a team. Um, and we were looking for a team, but like, we eventually started like pretty much placing top 5 in every tournament, I think, from what I can remember at least. Probably wrong, probably gonna get yelled at, but I mean, we were a pretty top team in terms of like the OCE scene. So when it came round to like picking an org, I think we had a lot of leeway in terms of like, we could get a top tier OCE org if we wanted to. We just needed to wait for the right one to come along. And eventually, like, after playing tournaments and like reaching out to people and people reaching out to us, we decided to speak to Order, which was kind of a new org at the time. They're pretty established now, but we ended up going with them, and they were really good to us. Nothing super exciting in terms of signing with them, but it was pretty cool to sign to such like a popular org at the time. It was a really good feeling, and we just like carried on from there.
But Order at the time was pretty established in Counter-Strike. Obviously, for yourself and some of your teammates, I don't think there was as much knowledge about the extent of how big that organization was maybe at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we had like meetings with like I think the CEO at the time, and he was explaining how they were going to do like crowdfunding, and like they were progressively going to get bigger and bigger. Um, but yeah, at the time there was no really incentive for them to provide us with like anything super exciting, but there wasn't for any other team either. So I mean, it was good. It was a good org, but like, looking back on it, it's it's like kind of STK situation now. It's like, unless it's got it like really something really good, there's not much point really signing to an org if they're not going to give you anything, unless you just want clout, you know.
I get that. I think that the idea is if you join an organization like Order, you're sort of buying into a family, and you're going to then be able to
Yeah,
buy into like their followers and their sort of following and fan base, for example. But I think from what like I've seen personally, you look at like the current Fury roster, whether they're Incognito, whether they're Fury, whether they're Order, they've got the same fans wherever they go, right? They're the fans
yeah,
of the team. So I think that's kind of speaks for itself. I think esports is still so young that there's not really fans of an org. Like there are a few really sort of diehards that I know that I see on Twitter that are like really big Order fans or like really big Legacy fans or Direwolves fans or whatever. But like it's not like a sport following, right?
No, it hasn't got to that. I think it will get to that stage, definitely, for sure. There just needs to be more popularity around the orgs, I think. Like, compare it to, like, Liquid or 100 Thieves or anything
Yeah,
like that.
that's
Those
true.
orgs are so popular, and, like, anyone new that comes on, like, you have people that follow that org and that org only, rather than players
100%.
specifically, which is more player-focused than OC, I think.
Well, like for myself personally, like when I used to watch a lot of the League of Legends stuff in the mid 2010s, like I was a big Curse fan for whatever reason. I just liked Curse. I liked the players that were on Curse, and then obviously you kind of, and then when they got acquired by Team Liquid, then I was a Liquid fan, and then I was like, oh, there's a Team Liquid team here and here and here, you know. So then it's like, well, that's my team now. Like, so in a way, like, yeah, I do like Team Liquid. I'm not very fanatic about it, but I 100% get what you get what you're saying, and I think that's just sort of speaks volumes about the fact that other regions around the world are going to always be 5-10 years ahead of like OCE, and I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if in 10 years time you're going to have that with like Order fans, for instance.
Yeah, I think we will. I think it'll get to that stage. I mean, esports is still so fresh, but obviously people are starting to see the potential of esports in general, like people investing, and even like from other sport, like actual quote unquote sports, are investing into esports now because I think they realize how big it's gonna get eventually.
Real sports investing into
Real
these.
sports, not
um,
actual esports.
yeah, the time with Order though came to an end rather quickly.
Yeah, I haven't really talked about it that much on. It was kind of more of a like not a few people knew of the what happened during that time, but it was so I was always I wanted to give like being a pro like a fair shot. So I think I had gotten sick of I was working full time. Well, for half the time I was in Incognito, I was working full time and kind of got sick of my odd job. So I ended up leaving and I was like I'll just play the game for 6 months and see how it goes, and, like see how far I can get. Because I wanted to give it like a fair crack because I was getting up at like 7 o'clock and I was scrimming till like I don't know, like 1 a.m. in the morning, and then I'd have 6 hours sleep and have to go to work. So it was pretty tiresome. And I ended up like leaving work for 6 months, and I was like, I had savings. I was like, I'll just like smash this as hard as I can. And so those 6 months came up like pretty quickly while I was in order. And so like once those 6 months were done, we weren't really improving much as a team, and we tried doing a lot of things. And I was IGLing with Cal, like co-IGLing. Um, and we were trying to switch things up and things weren't working, and I was just like kind of getting tired of it all. And I was like, yeah, I kind of don't want to play anymore to everyone. I didn't want to lead the guys on and be like, I wasn't really wanting to play as much, and I think that was like starting to be felt within the team. So I was like, I'll just leave. Like, you guys will need to get someone new. Um, but the problem was that when I decided to quit, my plans were still that if I got, because I was pretty high up, I was like, if I got offers from a good team, and the good teams literally being only three, which was if I got an offer from Chiefs, Greyhound, or Athletico, which were the three top teams at the time, then I'd think about staying and like trying to keep on going. Because that would be like a fresh start for me. It would be new. I wouldn't have to IGL because that was the one thing I didn't want to do most is IGL a team. I just wanted to frag if I could. And so I spoke to I can't remember his time, Spawn, who was kind of our manager at Order. And I was like, yeah, I want to leave. And he was really good. He was really like nice with it all. He just released me from the contract pretty much instantly. But while I was in discussions with that, Jukesy, who's a big cutie, messaged Neff or Hef on Athletico saying, oh, like, Matt's a free agent. He's just left Order. Like you should like pick them up.
Mm.
And this was after I'd left Order, so I'd decided to leave Order, and people had announced that I'd announced that I was leaving, and then Neff messaged me. He's like, "Oh, do you want to try out for Athletico?" And I was like, "Oh shit, dude, that's pretty sick. It's like one of the best teams at the time." I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So pretty much the next day after I left the team, I was playing scrims with Athletico, and from Order's perspective, they were like, "Why the hell are you playing with Athletico when you said you were going to quit?" I was like, I think there was like a miscommunication at the time. So I had said to only one person in Incognito and in Order that I was going to maybe accept offers from different teams. So I said that to Electric, but I didn't say that to anyone else. So that's my problem. Like I fucked up on that one, like 100%. So my Order family was pretty angry with me when they saw me trialing for Atletico like the day after I left, pretty much, which is completely reasonable. But at the end of the day, it's like I do what's best for me. I was going to leave the team anyway. I didn't leave to join them. That's the one thing that I like always try to make sure like people understand. I didn't leave because I got an offer from Ath. I left and then got an offer from Ath. So, which Jukes confirmed with them like after the fact. So I think I'm pretty cool with Cal and stuff like that now. So yeah. So after that, kind of joined Ath. I don't know if you want me to go into how that all went.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're here for a reason, right?
Here for a reason. So with Athletico, I was just picked up purely as a trial for PGI. PGI? Yeah, PGI 2018. So that was the initial trial.
Just to wind it all back, because of course, Atletico was originally Nefahor, Heifer, Pongo, Uncry. Pongo left, they got Linksy.
Yeah.
And then Uncry got kicked. I think they probably both got kicked, to be honest. But anyway, Uncry then got kicked or left or whatever. And then is that when you came in?
Yeah, so
this before or after Zemo?
This was, so if we wind back, so they went to PGL 2018, I think.
Yep.
They played that with Uncry. And then after that, I think either Uncry left or got kicked. I don't know which one, either or.
I think it was Star Series, the first one.
Star Series, yeah, you're right, sorry. And then after that, yeah, Zemo came up. I did Zemo with Order, and we just didn't qual because we sucked. So we failed those quals pretty hard. So we didn't get into that. And then it was pretty much right after that, actually, that I quit.
Because I recall with Atletico at Zemo, they obviously had an extra slot. Zidon was only substituting in, so they just hadn't filled the spot permanently.
Essentially, yeah. So right after Zemo, they won Zemo. They were gonna pick up Joe Zidon, but I think they wanted someone who was kind of like a more like experienced T1 fragger, which was me at the time. Which is pretty funny looking back on it because I feel like I wasn't that good. It's pretty terrible at the game. But anyway, so they decided to trial me. So we played a few scrims together, and we instantly I thought that I got along with Cow and stuff instantly, but like when I played with Neff and Hef, we instantly got along. Like it was like we were pretty much like best friends. It was extremely weird. Like Neff, everyone knows Neff is a weird guy, but like I don't know.
I love playing with Neff.
Oh, Neff is the nicest person ever.
Funniest guy ever.
So is Linksy. Like that team, still by far is the best people I've ever met in terms of like esports or any game that I've ever played. Those guys are definitely like lifelong friends. But so yeah, I got along instantly with them. When we were doing the qualifiers for PGI, I was like doing really well at the time. I think it was like a second fragged after probably Linksy or Heifer. I was just fragging out real hard, so they were really happy. And then the big news which because I was still on the fence about playing PUBG because I had no money left essentially. So I don't know if this has been shared. I asked Mangy about this, and he said I can talk about it. But the main reason I decided to keep playing was because the contract that Ath offered me, which was on the fence at the time, was Mangy, who was the owner of Ath, had a big investor, and they were willing to set us up in a team house with a salary as well, which was a decent salary. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, hell yes, let's go. Move to Melbourne. They'll pay for all my things to move to Melbourne. My girlfriend would be able to live over there as well because the house we were going to live in was huge. So that was like really exciting. And that was so close to happening, like so close to happening. And then we played PGI quals and we shit the bed real hard. And we came 7th.
Well,
the offer was sorry,
let's just focus on that then, right? Because it makes it easier for when I want to do the fucking timestamps. PGI comes around, right?
Yeah.
Leading into PGI, right? There's expectations because, of course, your Athletico roster, the core 3, went and won Zimo. There's now expectations on the shoulders, especially for yourself coming in and filling the slot that Zidon left, and this is obviously a massive tournament, big slot to go internationally. Did you feel that pressure going into the tournament?
For sure, like it was definitely because I think that was my first ever LAN as well. That was the first like offline event that I'd ever played in any game ever. So it was like that was like super nerve-wracking. I hadn't done any, like, all the teammates had experiences. I hadn't really ever had anything like that. I'd never played outside my bedroom, so it was kind of like super nerve-wracking at the time for me. But yeah, so there were a lot of expectations on me, to like, because I was specifically chosen as a fragger as well. So like the team was relying on me to be like the extreme essentially of Athletico along with Hef and Linksy. But yeah, so when we got into PGI 2018, the offline qualifiers, it was all right. The first 2 days, or the first day, I think it was 2 days. I can't remember exactly if it was 2 or 3 days, but the first day we did all right. I think we're sitting in 3rd or something. But on the last day, we just completely.
It was a 3-day event.
Oh, it was a 3. So the first 2 days, I think we did well. We weren't doing bad, but Chiefs just dumpstered everything. Chiefs was just dominating. They're playing it super smart. They were pretty much winning every game. So they already had a massive lead pretty much after day 1, if I remember correctly. They were like super far ahead. And then day 2, I think we were still okay. There was like maybe a chance of us reaching them, like maybe. And then day 3 was the worst days when we had like the worst games. We just constantly just kept making mistakes and ended up coming 7th overall, which was like super depressing, especially since Mangy, who was the Athletico owner, was there as well, and it was just like really disappointing to see like his reaction to our performance because it was all on us. So it was pretty rough tournament.
I remember that was the tournament. I think me and Neff went and bought a vape.
Oh, I remember that in the hotel room.
Yeah,
hotel room.
Because we were neighbors.
Yeah, we were neighbors. You came around. That's right.
Yeah.
And I tried vaping, and Neff set it on 100, like the maximum. I started coughing, and I vomited in the sink. That was a good time.
Yeah, but it was obviously not a good time in game. I remember going into that, and I thought there were 3 teams that would have a chance of finishing first. It was you guys, Chiefs, and Greyhound. Did you share the same sentiment?
Yeah, pretty much. Except then Greyhounds just went.
Well, they shat the bed. You guys shat the bed on the last day. Chiefs did the opposite of shitting the bed. They shat a gold nugget out. They had a really good tournament, and because they were a team that was quite inconsistent online. They had really good firepower, but sometimes they just lacked results, and then obviously it all just sort of came together.
The the one thing about that team, which still actually like is applied today, and I think is their strongest asset, is the fact that all of them, well, champs, I can't potato, oh, it was champs, specifically champs, edge, and crit, have all played competitive FPS games and played at LANs for like the last 10 years. So when they go to LANs, they are so confident. And like the fact that they have that advantage makes them even more confident. So they just destroy everyone. So I think that was shown in PGI and that was shown in PGS as well last year.
That's still one of my favorite events, if not potentially my favorite. Just everything about it, like a proper 3-day event. Everyone got in a day early, so the whole thing was like good 4 or 5 days. We were at the hotel with like the pool and the spa. I remember all the players going in there as well, which they ended up knocking that place down. Which is why the last LAN that we had last year was at a different location.
That was pretty nice as well.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was good. But that just everything about that LAN was just great. It like Zemo was good, but Zemo didn't feel as inclusive as that LAN did. I felt that LAN was better.
Yeah, I was pretty upset I didn't get to go to Zemo there. That looked fun.
It was fun. It was fun. Anyway, so you miss out on that slot. I'm assuming this then affect the investment that was heading Athletico's way?
So that was the worst part of it. It didn't directly affect it, but like Mangy, I mean, it definitely did. Like the fact that we came 7th, Mangy thought that if we'd come top 3 or like top 2, that it definitely would have happened because they would have been confident in our ability to like that we'd be able to prove ourselves as like a top org in OCE. So when we came, like when we pooped bed, it was a pretty hard time for Mangy because he had to kind of talk to them and justify like, oh, it's like a one-off tournament, like they weren't very lucky, like blah blah blah. But I think that was when it all started going downhill, and then we had online tournaments that we weren't doing well in as well, and eventually we kind of just kept getting worse and worse. It felt like.
Well, the thing is, when you consider it from Zemo to everything after, it really was sort of downhill from Zemo.
Yeah, it was.
In a lot of ways, which is unfortunate for you because obviously you didn't even get to participate in Zemo, which was also a pretty big payday.
Yeah, it was a big payday.
But what you did get to participate in was PGL. This was 4 months after PGI LAN, so a bit of time between PGI and this. How much did you sort of know about PGL going into it? Because this was the last invitational that Athletico got. Maybe because of the fact that you guys finished 3rd last.
Yeah, so that was PGL was an experience in itself. I think before PGL we had already decided that we were going to split up as a team. I think Linksy had already decided that he was going to try go somewhere else, and then me and Hef were just going to quit the game, and then Neff was just going to continue on and try find another team. But before PGL, I'm pretty sure that was sorted. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that we'd already decided on that we were leaving. But that didn't mean that we weren't gonna like go out there and give it our all at all. Like we were still like trying as hard as we could to win. But I mean, as soon as we got there, that was the first time I'd played against any international teams. And as soon as I got there, I was like, "Oh, we are so bad. Like we are so much worse than these people." Or okay, not necessarily we're bad. The teams in our region are terrible compared to the teams in the EU and NA. So when it came to pretty much anything to do mechanically or strategically, we were so far behind on. You imagine that you drive 100 meters past an OCE team, you get shot 800 times and they don't kill you, and they do like 2 tags and you're fine, you just carry on your merry way. And then you rotate like 300 meters within Team Liquid and they're just headshotting you out the car with a spray. You're like,
one shot, one tap, dead.
What do I do? Like how I don't know how to move. Like we didn't know how to play against them, so we just constantly just got destroyed. And we didn't have a coach. I don't think we had a coach. We didn't have a coach or anyone like saying like, "Oh, this is what teams do." We like looked at VOD reviews after every night, and we just couldn't come up with ways to counter it. It's just like naturally we just kept doing what we were doing because it was what we were used to, and it just wasn't working, and we didn't know what to do.
Mangy came for that one as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Mangy came for that one. It was also disappointing for Mangy, to be honest.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good track record of going to.
No, he hasn't.
These...
His best investment was definitely picking up Greyhounds because they had the best Athletico run at.
We'll get into that later. When you were at PGL, did you spend much time with Extreme, who was playing for Ghost at the time?
Oh, not much time. I mean, he was the only person we really knew there. But yeah, I mean, Extreme was also like trying to prove himself there as well because he was playing with Ghost, and I think they had a rough tournament, and they weren't having a very good tournament there either, from what I remember. So no, we didn't really spend much time with other people. That whole tournament was not fun for us. I mean, me and Lynxy had 56 hours of travel to get there. Which I literally didn't get a wink of sleep that entire time. So I traveled 56 hours to the hotel, and then I slept, and then we were playing scrims the next day. It was terrible. We were so like knackered after that game.
So you mentioned
that travel.
You mentioned that team was going to obviously sort of separate, and you sort of alluded to the fact that this was done even before doing PGL. But then a month later, you're playing in the OMEN Challenger Series.
Yeah, we were still together at the time. I think we were just like giving it a last stint. I remember there was two more lands after PGL. There was the OMEN qualifier, which in our eyes was completely free. So the only reason we did it was because we were pretty much guaranteed to go at that point.
New Zealand, yeah, because you represented New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yourself, Unique, Lynxy, and then you were allowed one Australian player, which was obviously Neff.
Yeah. Oh, Neff? Yeah, was it Neff? Yeah, it was Neff. So yeah, we flew over for that. We flew everyone over for that, and that was pretty free. We just went to the LAN. We didn't realize it was a bring your own computer LAN, so we ended up having to pay like a ridiculous amount to loan some random PCs, which was a fun experience. But yeah,
you didn't do very well at that event either.
In our defense, that tournament was so bad because
there was
11 teams, and 3 of those teams knew how to play the game. And the 3 teams were all pro players as well. So it was pretty much just 3 teams versus 3 teams the entire time. So it was 3 teams were in the top 3 in 5 out of 6 games. So it was the weirdest tournament ever. So it was like,
but you guys should have still done better.
I mean, we won.
No, you didn't. But are you thinking about? No, I'm talking about the actual OMEN by HP, not the qualifier.
Sorry, I thought we were talking about the qualifier.
No, who gives a shit about the qualifier? We're talking about the main thing.
Okay, the main thing was another disaster. Surprisingly, it was still terrible at the game. Yeah, the actual tournament was. I don't even know what happened. It was so bad. The first day we had like the influencer games, and me and Lynxy were fragging. We were destroying kids left, right, and center. And then the actual tournament came around, and we just pooped the bed again. The problem with our team throughout the entire thing was that no one ever wanted to IGL. So Neff hated IGLing and never wanted to IGL. Lynxy didn't want to like bear the responsibility of being on IGL either. I specifically said I'm only joining if I'm not IGLing, and then Hef didn't really want to IGL either. So our team never really had anyone that wanted to IGL. We just kind of forced it upon Neff, who hated it in general.
So you basically knew that was going to be your last tournament?
Yeah, that was already decided. That was our last tournament. So before that, I'm pretty sure Lynxy had already left. Athletico. We were just doing it because it was essentially a free flight to Thailand, and we could just smash it. It was also super depressing that we lost again, but yeah, I think everyone at that point had just like moved on their merry way and mentally and didn't really care anymore.
I think that would have also. I think actually the result's good because it would have just sort of reconfirmed, like, yeah, okay, this is not working. And if you guys had won that tournament, though, was it still very much over, or would have it been
Yeah,
like, oh, hang on?
it was over. Linksy had opportunities in EU. I had zero money left because we hadn't got the team house thing, and I was just like, yeah, I need to go back to work. Um, and then yeah, so it was pretty much decided after that.
Well, I mean, technically, it was decided, I guess, even before PGL,
Oh
but yeah.
yeah, PGL was like the point we were talking about it, and the events after just kept confirming that we were confirming that we wanted to leave pretty much.
Did
I mean,
you
I was
did you
sorry.
feel like, obviously after Zemo, that you never really lived up to the expectations that were maybe set on you?
100%. I never, even to this day, I don't understand how I got on the team. Like at the time, I was confident that I was like a really good player, but looking back at it, I'm like, well, they kind of had to settle for me for one because they tried getting Kasun, who didn't want to join, and then they
And
tried
old
getting
Kasun was
Extreme.
good.
Dude, old Kasun's a frag. Dude. Don't get me started on that prodigy, Fortnite Pro and Valorant Pro now. But he yeah, so they tried getting Kasun, they tried getting Extreme, which they couldn't get either of. And then Jukesy kind of hyped me up, which was nice of them. And
Mm.
I mean, I wasn't bad at the time. Like I was good, but I don't think I was the best by any margin, um, which was proved thereafter. But yeah, I mean, there was a point where this is my claim to fame, by the way. There's a point in CG where there was 16 games. I had 0 kills in 12 out of the 16 games, and I was the fragger.
Mm.
So that's my biggest embarrassment pretty much after that game. I
I
mean,
I, re- I recall after Zemo that Zidon felt hard done by, that he felt like he should have got that slot. Do you think maybe in another hypothetical universe, maybe they should have just gone with Joe?
I think it could have been possible. Yeah. I mean, Joe's not a bad player by any means.
No.
Like Joe was probably at I don't know if he would be better than me at the time. He's definitely better than me now, but at the time, I mean, it's not all about like I mean, I don't know what went inside the team like Neff's mind and Hef's mind, but I guess they just didn't feel like he was right for the team for whatever reason, regardless of how good a player is. I mean, if you don't get along well and you're not synergizing well, then I don't think it's worth it.
Mm.
You can probably settle for someone that you get along well, that you can build up a bit more, which is probably me. But I think I was more high profile than Joe was, so they were like, "Ooh, let's get him instead of Joe."
A kind of similarity to Atletico picking up Jukesy before PGC, and then the letdown and everything, like coming from, like, it's almost identical when you think about it. Zimo, GLL Grand Slam, McClutch,
Mm.
Jukesy, letdown. Like, it's kind of scary in a way.
Yeah, it is. I think it's pretty hard. I think. I
Not that
mean,
I'm comparing Zidon to Luke 12. We'll just clear that up.
who's Luke 12? I don't know who that is. The washed up OC player probably.
Couldn't
But
even make it in the region.
yeah, SMH my head, dude. Had to go to NA versus the worst players.
Mm-hmm.
Feels bad. Stealing another one of the OC talents. No, which is good. But no, I don't know. I think that team synergy is pretty important. You can't just put someone in a team that's good at something and expect them to like do well. It's such a team orientated game that no matter how good you are individually, there's no way you can ever carry a team. So just adding like the best fragger in the world is never gonna increase your like your team's potential, I think.
You got to get along with your teammates as well, and that's definitely something that you did, and you guys did very well, was get along. Did you get along too well? Like, was there even any inner conflicts at times when things weren't going well? Because I would imagine that if a team is struggling, you're getting like 13th here and 14th here, there's going to be a lot of disagreements.
We never really had any disagreements. Like we all were extremely level-headed in terms of like providing feedback to each other. I don't think we ever fought ever against anything. Like we were all such good friends that we could tell when we were doing badly, and we knew what we were doing wrong. But for some reason, we just never could like show that overseas for some reason. So I think, were we too good of friends? I don't know. I don't think that could really be a thing. I mean, we were such good friends in terms of like outside and inside of game that I don't think it would affect our mentality. I think we just, I don't know. I guess we just weren't right for each other. I don't know. I just don't think we had enough leadership for an IGL. I think.
The talent was obviously there
Oh,
because we've
yeah.
seen Neferhol go on and do good things. Lynxie's gone on and done great things. Effa was a really, really good player in his heyday. Yes, it was a while ago, but he was the golden beard. And despite what you want to say, you were a very talented player. It just didn't click.
I think that Neff, Lynxie, and Hef at the time were like some of the best players in the game. There was like Zoid and Extreme and stuff at the time.
Crit,
But probably Crit and Edge and stuff like that. But I still rate, like, mechanically, Hef is insane. And when he was playing, he was nuts.
Oh,
yeah. Lynxie is proven easily to be like an extremely good. I hate watching Lynxie play because he's so slow, but he's so good. It frustrates me. But and then Nefs, yeah, all three of those guys were insane mechanically. We just had no IGL, and then we had people like giving input but didn't want to IGL, so they're like, "Oh, we should have done this." Like, well, why didn't you do this? It's like, "Oh, because I'm not the IGL." And then we had pretty much three people doing that. We had Neff, Lynxie, and me doing that. We're like, we should have done this. And so then Neff's like, well, why didn't we? He's like, because you're the IGL. And it was just kind of like constantly like that, where no one wanted to take responsibility for being the IGL because none of us wanted to do it. I think that was our problem.
I can see that. In hindsight, though, I think in the moment it's a lot harder to really understand where things are going wrong.
Yeah.
Hindsight,
sure.
It's easy to look back and say, okay, we could have probably done this, and this better. But
yeah, I think
it was also a time of PUBG, like 2018. Things weren't as structured. It wasn't like 2019 where things became a little bit more professional with the circuits and the phases, etc. Everything was a lot more laid out and planned. 2018 was just rush everywhere. Like we had Zemo, we had PGI, but everything in between, everything besides those two was just invites here and shitty online tournaments there. It was a very different time, the Wild West of PUBG back then. So you finish up your time, of course, you retire, this time for good, going into 2019. There was no inkling of continuing professional play, not even in a manner where maybe you've got a new job, but you can still play.
Not necessarily, no. I think that I learned after working full-time and playing full-time that it just wasn't. I haven't like a missus, and there was no way I could juggle everything at once. It was just too much. There was too much time involved if I wanted to do it seriously. So I don't think so. When I like decided to quit, that was it. I was just going back to work full-time, go back to an IT job.
And so you never really missed it? Like, it was never like that aching pain of like, I wish I could play pro. Like, deep down, if you could play pro, would you have still been playing?
100%, yeah. Right, I mean, if I was financially able to just decide that I wanted to keep playing, 100%, I would just keep playing the game. Even now, like, if I had everything that I wanted, I'd still play. Like, it's still by far my favorite game. And even now, when I watch people scrim, I'm like, oh my god, I want to scrim so bad. I just want to shoot heads and shoot people and like play in scrims and stuff like that.
Prove and learn, competitor.
I can't do it anymore.
I feel you there, definitely. I had my professional time as a pro Paladins player. I've been there. I understand the feels,
Yeah.
but you also sort of missed out on the 2019 season. If there was a coin that said you have your year like you did in 2018, you had that year. You said I'm going to commit. How much more would if you prefer that year to actually be 2019?
You mean in terms of like the structure of
Well, yeah, the phase
PUBG?
1, phase 2, phase 3, face it, GLL, PGC, everything about 2019 was superior to
Yeah,
2018.
it was sad, like honestly, because I didn't get to play Sandhawk, which is yeah, that's fine. Stay out of that one. It's okay.
Whoa, you allowed to say that?
I mean, I'm allowed to say I don't like Sandhawk. That's fine. But I didn't get to play the new point system. I think that was the
Mm,
one thing that I would have liked to try the most. I think
true.
that we would have done good in. I think a more kill orientated, uh, like kill orientated game would have suited our team much more than it would like just playing for placements.
The rank tank
So
meta.
yeah, I feel like I missed out on that, which kind of sucks. I would have liked to try playing in that with the original team. So that was probably my biggest gripe. But after that, it's kind of like I'm glad that we had a more structured system, especially for invites. Invites were no one likes them. Like even when we got invited, we were like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to the teams that like are obviously better than you, that deserve to be there,
Mm.
or might deserve to maybe be there. It's just you
Creates
can't tell without
conflict as well
qualifiers.
because if you it's so much harder to support. I'd imagine if like I'm Greyhound sitting there watching Atletico go to PGL, it's hard to really support them. It's kind of like, well, you shouldn't be there.
I mean, yeah, it sucks, but at the same time, it's not our choice. Like,
No.
no one has a choice. Greyhounds get, I mean, who is it? Tainted Minds get picked. Like, it sucks for us, but I mean, we're such a small region. It's not us choosing these people, like, at all. If we're gonna get invited, you may as well try to get invited. Like, we don't control qualifiers for these tournaments. Like, at that
Mm.
point, it's just a free for all. You try to get it if you can. There should be no hard feelings for the players. It should be hard feelings for the people organizing it, but not for the players. You
I
should
don't
support.
think the I don't think the animosity was really ever there for the
No,
players.
I don't think it
There
was either.
definitely was animosity towards the organizations, though.
Yeah, for sure. I think people understood that it wasn't your problem. It still sucked, and people still complained. But at the end of the day, people were watching and like supporting like the boys. Like we supported Tainted Minds, and then people
Yeah.
supported us, and we
Well,
supported New Athletico.
despite sort of how we'll say Mangy's legacy ended in the end in great fashion, and a lot of people really loved him in the scene. He got off to a rocky start, like with with the Zimo qualify issues. What's his name? God, what was the guy's name? The guy working with Atletico at the time. He was
I don't
helping.
know.
I can't remember his name. God damn it! He was with Atletico, and they were like doing all the quals and stuff. They were organizing a lot of that. Mangy
Yeah.
was organizing a lot of Zimo. A lot of people weren't happy with how that was, and like, oh, why is Atletico, sort of so involved here? And then obviously Atletico going to all these things. So not a lot of people were very happy with Mangy at the very beginning.
No, for sure, including us, to be honest, because we was order at the time, and I can't remember with this. I think there were some teams that got invites and other teams didn't, and so we were like, "Well, we're a top org. Why did we not get invited?" kind of thing.
Hmm.
But looking back on it, like in hindsight, I can understand his position. It wasn't his choice to do any of it, right? It
No,
was
no,
pretty much that he was told to do anything. Mangy is like the hardest working person that I know, and anyone
without a
that
doubt.
knows Mangy like understands this completely. People that were against him, like that didn't like him when we were playing for Ath, and then ended up going to Ath. Like turns out, I was like, oh my god, he's actually like the nicest dude ever.
Yeah.
So I would have zero doubt in my mind now that at the time Mangy was doing the best for the region itself, the best that he could, and he would try and make it as fair as he could as well. Like I have 100% faith that Mangy was like he he wouldn't have had much choice to do what he did. I think, and I feels bad for him because he got a lot of flack for it, um, and he's probably the one that person in the scene that's worked the hardest for PUBG.
100%. I know for a fact that one day I'm going to get him on this podcast and have a good chat with him. There's a lot of stories there.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm just glad that by the end of it all, of course, with Athletico shutting its doors and everything, that he gained all of the respect that he deserved and that everyone saw everything that he did for the region. So I'm glad that was all very short-lived, the early days stuff. But as we sort of get back on track here, 2019, you go back to an IT job or whatever. How long until you start sniffing around PUBG Corp?
It was before then, actually. So when I was with Order, maybe Athletico, I can't remember which one, Hawkins reached out to me and offered me a part-time position, doing kind of something similar to what I'm doing now, except like a bit lower level. He's like, oh, you reached out? Because I think I messaged him and I was like, if anything pops up to do with esports, let me know. I'll like be interested to try. And I gave him my resume and stuff like that. He's like, oh, there's a part-time position that you might be interested in. It was when I was with Athletico. And I was like, hell yeah, like I'm really keen to do that. But it ended up falling through because it was a conflict of interest. I couldn't play competitively for the game and work for the game at the same time. It was just like, it would obviously cause, people would have issues with that. So that was before PGL, I believe. And I kind of just ignored it after that. I was like, whatever, like that's not happening, feels bad. And then at some point after I quit, like I think like a week after I quit maybe, Hawkins reached out and was like, hey, what would you think about, having an interview for a full-time position? I was like, sir, excuse me? Like a dream come true. I was like, hell yeah, like let's do it. And I think part of that was Xtol, who was working at the time, who was also a previous competitive player. He probably helped me get that interview as well, which shout out to Xtol, big cutie. But yeah, so after that, I was kind of like a dream come true, honestly. Like the game I'd played for 2 years, like put so much time into, by far like my favorite game of all time. Like being able to work for them was like, what more could you want, I guess? It didn't matter what role I was going to do. I was going to accept a job anyway, even if it was, I mean, IT was okay, but I'd rather do something I'm passionate about. So yeah, I went for an interview with Hawkins and a few other people, and then he was like, yeah, you got a job. I was like, hell yeah, thank you, sir. Let's go.
I'll take that. Yeah, you
take
those.
that. You take those. We take those. Good W.
It's not a common thing though that in either New Zealand or Australia you can get a job for a big company like PUBG Corp, an international one. Like if you're working on games in Oceania, usually it's indie stuff, or you typically have to move overseas.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason I got the job is probably because I am in New Zealand, because the way it works with my job is that a lot of the content and releases come out in the Korean time zone, which is really bad time zone in America, which is like, so Hawkins was doing all the announcements and stuff in Korean time, which is only 3 hours behind us. So it syncs up well to have someone on the OC side of the world, even if we're on the NA team. That makes sense.
Well, that leads me into sort of my next question here, because what is your actual role that you do for PUBG Corp? And has it been that same role since you joined originally?
I mean, kind of. I mean, I would say from the start, yeah, my role is, there's certain fundamental things that stay the same, but it's always kind of evolving and it's always changing, and depending on like what we want to do and what people want to see. But in terms of like what I do on a day-to-day basis, it varies so much. Like, I guess the main role is we just want to be like a source of voice for the community towards dev, and then devs towards the community. So like we get sentiment from players from every platform that we can. So to clarify, I work for the NA community team. So they just work. I only deal with anything to do with North America, pretty much, which includes OCE. So yeah, I gather sentiment from players. I'll go like track internal updates if there's like any new updates coming. I'll see if there's any issues or any potential things that are gonna, make players angry or doesn't align with what people want, and talk about those. I'll try to get information from developers and share it with players and vice versa. If they want to know anything, we'll go out and gather information for them and send it back through. I used to do this, not so much anymore. Hawkins kind of looks after this now, but doing all like the patch notes and writing those up, because obviously they go out in Korean, so we have to translate them and fix broken English and get that all sorted and make sure it makes sense to players, because sometimes even with normal translation, translators don't really understand how the game works, essentially, so you kind of have to reword it so players can understand. And yeah, just pretty much anything community related, like giveaways or events like AMAs and anything to do with that. So it's kind of a whole bunch of stuff that, I mean, there's still more stuff, but it's just kind of a bunch of like little tasks that add up to a lot, essentially.
A very fluid role. You're going to be doing one thing this day and another thing the next day, which I find those sort of roles exciting when you're not just pigeonholed into doing one thing. So
100%.
If I get this correct, you're the community coordinator.
Yes, correct.
Is Hawkins your boss?
Hawkins, yeah, essentially Hawkins is my boss. Not so much anymore. He's kind of moved into a different role. I still talk to him all the time.
So wait, is he not community manager anymore?
No, he is a community manager. Okay. I just don't deal with him as much. I deal with one of the other community managers now, who is CC. She's a community manager for console, but yeah, I still talk to Hawkins. Hawkins is an expert on anything. If I ever need to like, what should I say to this person? He'll rewrite my messages half the time. He's still a hero.
Yeah, Hawkins is an absolute legend in the OCE region, and I remember the very first time he came to, I think it was at PGI LAN. I think it must have been PGI LAN. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, and he was sitting on the couch, and I was like, "Oh, Hawkins,
Tim,"
and I was like, "Everyone, behave," because everyone was drinking and whatnot, like right in front of Hawkins.
He's the most like relaxed person ever. He's so funny.
Yeah,
he's also like, okay, that is one person that if he ever decided to play PUBG competitively, he'd be one of the best players in OCE.
Really?
Easily. He is mechanically insane for how much he doesn't play the game. I mean, he used to play Rust. Everyone knows him from Rust. If you were like a good Rust player in OCE, you knew who Hawkins was. Apparently, right. He was like Jesus in Rust.
Didn't know that about Hawkins.
Everyone knows that Hawkins is a mechanical genius.
He's a fragger.
He's the next Luke 12. He's just not there yet.
He was the OG Luke 12. He just never got that chance. In another universe, he is the Luke 12, and then imagine little Thumb Luke as the community manager for PUBG.
Thumb Luke as the community manager. Yeah, I'll see that, dude.
Yeah. What does everyone? You've explained your role now, but what does everyone perceive your role to be? Like when they think of PUBG Corp McClutch, what do they think you do? They're fixing servers and breaking things and developing new stuff.
It varies from the people I talk to, right? For the general public, I think most of what I said, I think people kind of figure that I do that kind of stuff anyway, like sentiment and flagging issues and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to see what people perceive me as. I like to try and get involved in esports as much as I can, because I just love esports, because I used to be a pro player. But it's not my role, so sometimes I'll try and help with esports, and then people will come to me with esports questions. I'm like, I don't know, actually, sorry, it's not my responsibility. But yeah, so I don't know, I don't really know how people perceive me, to be honestly.
Well, like, just for instance, like, obviously a lot of the players in this region know you very, very well, right? And then whenever there's an issue, it's like, McClutch, this is not working. Like you're gonna go and fix it.
In terms of people that I know, it's really difficult for me because it's like I was a player and I was just a guy that played with everyone, and then I suddenly switched into a guy that works at PUBG, and it was kind of hard because everyone changed the way they talked to me, which is fair enough. Like I kind of expected that, but
Mm.
it's like everyone shifts the way they talk to you immediately, and I was like, oh well, this is my life now. Everyone's gonna reach out to me with their issues, um, which is fine. But when it's people you know, it's kind of sad because it's like, oh, I don't really get to play normal games with my friends anymore because it always just turns into questions about PUBG. It's like,
Mm.
damn it. But it's
You just
fine.
want to click heads.
I just want to click heads and enjoy my time, and then someone runs into a bug in game. They're like, "Sir, fix this now." I'm like, "Oh, I can't. Sorry."
I remember when you got the gig, and I think one of the first things I asked you was like, McClutch, can you get me a name change? I'd
Oh,
been
there's no
asking.
sir.
I had already tried my luck with Hawkins, didn't work. I finally
I
got that
don't.
name change. Thank you to the PCS one with the name tag in the that you can buy. Forgot it.
Oh, I can't get my own name. That's how that when I explain, I think I explained this to you as well. I was like, people that
Yeah,
want to change their name to something, I can't even get my own name. That's how sad it is. That's the rules. I can't get McClutch because someone already has it. It feels bad.
there's another McClutch out there.
Yeah,
That's
he's better. He hasn't
does
played for
he?
3 years, but he's
I
better
was
than
gonna
me.
say, does he play?
No, he hasn't played anymore. Hasn't played for years.
Imagine he comes back one day and he's like reading the PUBG Reddit and he sees
It's like
PUBG
McClutch.
McClutch has like put this post up. He'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah. What if he came back and his name was suddenly gone? I think he'd be more angry about that, to be honest.
yeah." What's your favorite thing about working at PUBG Corp that maybe before you started you didn't realize you'd enjoy, or just in general, what's something that you love about this job?
I think just it's like as I don't know, as cliche and cringe as it is, it's like it doesn't really feel like work for me because I imagine it's something similar for you, right? Like
Yeah,
when you're working on something that you actually enjoy doing, you're interested in, it doesn't like it does. I don't wake up in the morning. I'm like, oh god, dude, I have to go to work and like talk to people and you know put pants on in the morning, which I don't have to do by the way. But
neither do I.
um, yeah, it's good. I've got no pants on now. But I don't know. For that, in terms of that, it's just like I'm just so happy that I have a job where I'm actually like interested in what I'm doing. So it's like anything that comes up, any new content that comes up, I'm like, oh, sick, dude! I can't wait to play this or something like that.
Hmm.
But just the team I work with in general is awesome. Um, but if there's anything unexpected, not really. Obviously, having access to like everything all of a sudden when you join the company is kind of weird. It's like I know what's happening for like the next year and a half already.
Yeah,
It's like
these future projects, and
kind of
you
cuts
can
cuts the excitement out of it. But
you can do some like cheating stuff with the game as well. I remember
there's no
once
cheating.
you there was a game I was casting and I got like kicked out of it, and you put me back into that game.
Oh yeah, I can observe games. So I can put myself into games and put
Yeah,
people back in games.
and you put me back in. I was like the fucking wizard, man. This is
I
sick.
can only put
You,
observers back in there, not
yeah, it
actual
was.
players, which
Well,
is
no,
really
not
bad.
actual players, obviously, but I was like
Yeah.
observing the game crash, couldn't get back in. It was at that time back then. If you crashed, sometimes you just couldn't get back in. So I was like, Clutch, you get me back in. You were like, wait a second, wait, go into this lobby, do this. Okay, wait, and then I just saw loading.
Back in, yeah, yeah, it's
It was so
cheating.
cool.
He's got
It was
those
so cool.
cheats.
I was like,
Mm.
hell yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned earlier, obviously, you love esports, you competitive player. Um, is the goal one day to move into like the esports department for PUBG Corp?
I think yeah, that is something I've always wanted to do. I think I expressed that when I first started as well. I was like, I come from an esports background. Like, um, it would be awesome if I could work in esports somehow. Uh, I mean, if there was ever a role which I was suited for, then yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to do. Um, but at the moment there's just nothing that is really viable for me to go into, so it doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, it's definitely in terms of like after PUBG, if I ever leave, it's like I definitely want to move into esports. It's the thing I'm most passionate about and thing that I would think I would be good at as well. I'd like to do some development side um of a game, but obviously that takes a bit more than what skills I have at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of technical skills for that. You
Yeah,
probably have seen a lot of the in progress stuff and like what the developers are actually doing. And you're like, oh damn, that's cool. I wouldn't mind like actually help make the game, but then you
yeah.
realize how fucking hard that is.
Just map design in general, I think I'd be really interested in. Just like making a map that is as viable as possible for esports, but that's much harder than people much harder than people think. Eh?
Oh yeah, it's not easy, especially in a battle royale as well. But I mean, like in
Yeah.
any competitive game, like you look at the flack that like some of the Valorant maps when they originally came out,
Mm.
a lot of people were saying like, "What's this shit? Like, the fuck is this?" Blah blah blah.
What does Split get it out?
It's like the same guy who made, I think, Inferno and a bunch of other CS maps as well. But like, obviously, he's under a new directive. I think that's probably another thing with working at PUBG Corp is you kind of see the inner workings of what a gaming company is, and like sometimes you see things at face value. Not you, but like people see things at face value, like the Valorant maps and the way that they were made. Well, maybe the guy who made that was told to do this, this, and this.
I think it is a big thing in games in general. It's like made me understand decisions much more. I mean, like there's a lot of stuff that we can't share as to like reasons why we do something. There's reasons behind it which you can't share because either people won't understand why, or people just will not agree with you. And it's like,
Can't
even though
please everyone.
even though you know it's better for the game, people are still gonna get angry at you. So it's like it's kind of rough to see that. And when I look at other games like Valorant and like Path of Exile, for example, and I see their like decisions behind whatever thing, whether it's to do with
Yeah,
in-game, whether it's to do with
it's
skins,
interesting you brought that up. Path of Exile, like whenever the leagues come out, there's a lot of criticism typically about the
yeah,
mechanics.
yeah, it is. Path of Exile is one of the games, especially their community team and Chris, who's like the director. And I really respect the way they do everything. That's like pretty much Bex, who's their community leads. Like they do such an insanely good job when I look at what they do, and they still get abused for it. I'm like, oh my god, you people don't understand how good they are. And I
Have you
just
met
it
them?
makes
Because they're all in New Zealand.
they are. I haven't met them. I might go to the next Exile Conference probably in a couple of years, but I really want to meet them. But yeah, because I'm really impressed with everything they do, pretty much. But yeah, so I kind of understand their point of view. Like from a player, I've been in a situation where like you want something to be fixed and you don't. You're like, why isn't this fixed yet? Like you don't understand, which is completely reasonable because from your point of view, like this is what you see and this is what the problem is. But then I don't think people understand behind the scenes. There's a lot more that goes on with everything, which is hard. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, we're wrong in cases, and players are wrong in cases. It's just I think just like opening up communication is the most important thing to make players understand, which is what we're trying to improve on.
And that's obviously somewhere that your job in particular and Hawkins, when you're in this community side, you're speaking for the developers essentially to the public. And if, like, for instance, you get miscommunication from inside PUBG, that can also hinder it for you.
Yeah, it's really difficult, especially when you're dealing with translation and differing like development styles or attitudes about the game.
Time zones.
It's yeah, it's really difficult to kind of balance everything and make people happy. Um, but yeah, as I said, it's something that I think we need to improve on for sure. But just doing it in a way where players understand is something that we're trying to do more of. Like we're setting up more AMAs with like the ranked team. I think people have really appreciated with
Yeah, I saw that AMA and I really enjoyed the fact that it answered a wide range of questions.
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions people had, like team placement, why is kills not calculated as you die, and all that kind of stuff. The important questions that people want to know got answered in that AMA, which I think is the most important thing. And people might not agree with you at the time. People might be like, well, you know, team placement should be a thing straight away. But as long as we can try to explain our thought process, then I think people understand that they can still be angry, but at least they know the reason behind it,
The
essentially.
the PUBG employees who did that AMA, they were the developers for Sandhawk 2.0.
Yeah, there was two
Pretty sure.
AMAs. There was an AMA for Sandhawk 2.0, and then there was an AMA with the ranked team. So two different
Right.
teams. Yeah.
Well, just sort of touching on the Sandhawk one, do you think it's better that it's the actual developers who are answering that rather than having middlemen like yourselves and such as Hawkins as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think that um, obviously it's difficult for us because sometimes they'll say things which we don't think they should say, and we're like, probably shouldn't say that. But I mean, we have like systems internally where we review comments and stuff like that. If they have
but
any, if they're
but I
like,
think
should
as
I
long
say
as,
this?
and I understand when you mean when you say that, like sometimes the developer just doesn't have that communication skill with the public and understanding like
Yeah,
shouldn't say this, shouldn't say that. But it does make it then feel more real
yeah,
to the public,
agreed.
which at
Mm.
times is a good thing. So I think it's fine to let some little things slide.
Get past, yeah, for sure. Which is why they respond to like just like fun questions as well. I mean, they don't want to be depressing, answering depressing questions the whole time, you know. Then everything just turns into a depressing conversation. You know, you have to add a bit of fun in there. But I definitely agree. It's way better that we have devs answering questions because I mean, we can answer questions, but it doesn't feel the same. You know, it's
Mm.
better to hear it from their mouth.
No, I agree. Do you think that these sort of AMAs, now that there's been a ranked one, a Sandhawk one, is this something that potentially is going to be a bit more common moving forward?
Definitely, we're like really trying to improve in terms of like events and stuff that we do like this because players really appreciate them. Like we get such good engagement from these kind of AMAs. Um, Obviously, we can't do them like every week; it's just not feasible. But we'd like to do it as often we can if there's ever new things coming out or like specific. If there's a ton of questions for a specific feature or something, then we can get the team that designed that on there. It's definitely something that we want to do more of, yeah. Which we have
Mm.
been doing. I mean, we've done two in the past month, I think, and before that, we'd pretty much done one in 6 months probably. So um, we'll up our game on that for sure.
Mm. I appreciate it. Just for me, as someone who's involved within in PUBG, I like seeing all of those things.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, I frequent more so the competitive PUBG subreddit, which admittedly doesn't really get any love from PUBG Corp. Is that something that's ever spoken about? Because obviously, the main focus for you, Hawkins, etc., is typically going to be things like the PUBG Reddit. But like, does the competitive PUBG Reddit ever really get some love?
I mean, it's on our radar for sure. I mean, we talk to the Reddit mods quite often. Um, but in terms of our input in for Reddit, we don't really want to have much input in terms of there because we want it to be organically
Oh
focused
yeah, for
instead of
sure.
yeah. So we don't want to be in there like commenting a whole bunch and like saying we're doing X, Y, and Z because it's not really. I mean, if we get in there, people will start getting angry that we're getting too involved and blah blah blah.
My
But
my thing is more so like, for instance, the way that these AMAs have happened on the main one. I think it'd be really cool to have like an
an
esports
esports
AMA
one, yeah, I definitely
on.
think it's something we could do for sure.
Yeah,
The only other thing is it's esports is very regional when it comes to everything. So there's
I
like going to
understand
be
that,
NA esports, EU esports.
and
There's no
you're not going to get everything. But I think even if you were to have like the NA esports team, like small or whoever
yeah
else is part of that, to just sort of say, "Hey guys, we're going to just answer a few esports related questions that will mainly focus on, say, North America or potentially the Western esports section." Things like that, I think, would be really cool.
yeah.
Um, Obviously, I'm a bit biased here,
No, I
right?
mean I'm biased as well. To be fair,
The
See,
other thing as well
this
is
is one of the
though,
things where it probably branches under esports as opposed to
community.
community, because
Yeah.
esports is a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I'll bring up internally for sure. I think it's a good
Yeah.
idea.
The thing is though, of course, that you're not going to be able to please everyone. And I get that. You're not going to be able to do everything as well. And like kind of like what you were saying, you also want everything to be organic. You don't want to favor one thing more than the other. Do you find that people don't, from the esports side, like the people from like me and Underground and all these other really hardcore esports dedicated people, that this game is more casual sided than they realize?
I think so. When you look at the numbers in terms of casual players to competitive players, it's like the gap is so big, like ridiculously big. Like, I mean, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's like 30% of players, like 30% of active players or something, get less than, they have less than a 1.1 KD or something. It's like something like, and then 30% of all players don't have a kill. It's like there's an overwhelmingly amount of bad people in the game, and you're trying to strike a balance between like catering to people that play the game a lot while also making it available to players that don't play a lot. And it gets to the point where when you have 100 players in a lobby and you have 5 extremely good players that are just deleting everyone on the server, it's not very fun for the other 95 players that you're destroying in those games. And they just have the continual experience of getting in there, getting deleted from Luke 12 from 800 meters away, and then joining up and getting deleted from 800 meters away by Extreme 2G.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's a really a tough balance, I think. But
also
I think,
just sort of the not just in game, but also out of game in terms of the people who browse like PUBG Reddit or interact on Twitter and these other sort of social platforms typically are going to be more casual than they are competitive.
it's kind of the opposite actually. The people that comment on Reddit and Discord are usually more experienced players that have more hours in the game and that, you know, are complaining because they've played the game for X amount of hours and aren't enjoying anything. The hardest thing is getting casual player feedback, because people that play games casually don't really go on forums and talk about it very often. They just get home from work, they play a couple of hours, and then they go to bed. If they have a bad game, they just get off, kind of thing. So trying to get the casual player feedback is we can get it, but it's more difficult to get, and it's less vocal than say Reddit. If there's an issue on Reddit, then it'll blow up, and then people believe that like that's the main thing that everyone hates in the game. And I mean, we're not saying they're wrong. Like, it's definitely like a popular issue, but there are other things at work as well.
But it also sort of goes back to the debate about things like TPP versus FPP, which, you know, the competitive players sort of don't even understand why third person's still a thing, when in reality it's like half the player base still plays TPP.
Yeah, I think it's more than half the player base, much more than, or it depends on the region, of course. But yeah, it's difficult. The whole TPP and FPP discussion is just a weird thing, and you're never gonna please either side. If you talk to TPP people, they're like, no, don't remove TPP. I love TPP. I hate FPP. Like, a lot of people in the office that play the game play TPP, and they can't play FPP because it makes them feel sick. Apparently, I'm like, how does it make you feel sick? Like, I just don't like being in first person. I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird, but whatever.
Well, the game started out as third person, and so it's always going to hold on to those roots that it has that made it so popular in the first place. And when so many people still play third person, you can't just get rid of it. You can't just cut that out. Right?
It makes no sense. And the argument that people will move to FPP after playing TPP is a poor argument as well. I don't think that's the case at all for people. A lot of people don't play. A lot of people that play TPP won't switch to FPP if their queue gets enabled. They'll just stop playing the game completely. Pretty sure.
Now, I promised you that I wasn't going to ask any like real hard hitting questions, but I do have one now.
Okay.
It's in relation to queues, and it's just more so your own personal thought process on it. But it's something that's sort of been brought up on the podcast a few times now, which is that there's too many queues. Is this a sentiment that potentially is agreed upon at PUBG, or even if not at PUBG, if you don't answer that, but yourself?
I mean, it's agreed upon. There was times, say back in the OCE day, where the decision to switch it back took way too long. But now we have, it's much easier for us to switch queues within the current format of queues, which is random map and featured map and all that kind of stuff. So it's easy for us to change the queues. Like for OCE, we have one map, or random map only. For NA, we switched it to random map pretty recently.
But there's still like 4 queues technically, because you've got like solo,
PPP,
duo, squad, one-man solo, and that's just for FPP. Then you've got TPP. So technically, there's still like 8 queues.
8 queues for each region? No, it's more than that, isn't it?
Well,
I'm
imagining like still regions like EU have got like map selection. Korea,
yeah, 12 queues
instance.
for OCE, right? Solo, duo, squads times 2. Never mind. Yeah, 12 queues for OCE. But yeah, so the argument is that why don't you disable one and keep the other? Which is, I mean, it's possible for sure. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we could do that, but that's not necessarily a good thing to do. Because you're going to piss off 50% of your player base, and then of that 50%, a lot of them will stop playing the game completely because they can no longer play their favorite map.
I don't think you can get rid of TPP, and obviously you can't get rid of FPP. But has there ever been thought about something like a fill, right? So in some games like League of Legends, for instance, it's kind of like solo and fill. Not Phil the guy, but Phil, F-I-L-L. And of course, when you've got an option to sort of deny teammates being added to your party, like let's say you got 2 people and you want to kind of play this duo experience, but duo queue's been taken away, you go into fill. You just take off, we don't want random people, we're going to go in as a duo. That's just the way it is. You got 3 people, you can do the same thing. If you're a solo and you want to play with randoms, you say, I want people to party up with me. And that way it cuts the queues to like 4.
I mean, you essentially already have that with solo squads, duo squads, trio squads. Like, you have the option to play with less people if you want to, if you don't have friends. Feels bad, man. But I mean, we have that. The argument is that you could, I think, like a lot of people think that there's like solo duo squads. Like, what would we do with? Why don't we remove duos or remove squad? Remove duos pretty much was the only argument I can see would be reasonable, because you can play duos in squads
and trios and squads. Well, squads would basically be filled.
But then the other argument is people want duos, or remove solos and just have solo duos, so you can play versus 2 people instead of playing versus 4. I mean, there are a lot of different options. People want to be able to filter maps so they can avoid a single map, so map selection is easier. The thing is, a lot of people, like, we have all the data in the background that we can see, like when we close a queue, how queues like go and have gone in the past, like at what point when a queue stops does people stop playing the game completely. Like, we have the data in the background. We're not trying to, like, if we can make it so more people can play the games that they want, it's better. A lot of it is.
Well, I'm advocating for the opposite. I'm saying fuck you all. You should just get given a few small amounts and take it.
Yeah, I think that random map with the current system is the way to go, because with bots, you're pretty much always going to get a match, no matter what. No matter what mode you're playing, you'll always get a match. It just sometimes won't have a lot of players in it, which is reasonable for some people, not reasonable for others. But people also wanted ranked and like a separate queue so they don't have to verse any bots. I don't know. It's such a, there's so many things involved that people don't see in the background that affect it as well. And there's no reason that we wouldn't want to try and make as many people happy as we can. There's a reason why we don't change queues or don't like turn a queue off at a certain point. Like we want to try and make it as sustainable as we can for players. That's pretty much the goal. And the other thing is we want to make it like future proof as much as we can. So constantly changing queues isn't good for anyone either. But if we have a queue system, we make a queue system and people are like, oh, this is better. But then in like 2 months' time, that queue doesn't work anymore, and then we have to change it again. Like we'd rather just have like one system and then like which works, and then we can just like chug on through there.
And I'd say it's been a success for me personally, and just the way that I've seen it play out from where things once were, at least in the Oceanic region, because that's all I can really go off of. I'm not in North America or EU, for instance, but like I know for a fact I can go and open up the game, queue up, and within a couple of minutes I'm going to get a game.
Yeah, that's pretty much the most important part for a lot of people.
Yeah, because at one point in the past, the truth of it is sometimes you'd be waiting there for hours, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for OCE specifically, having experienced it, like having to set up a VPN and VPN to SEA and then connect to SEA and queue up in SEA, and then you're only guaranteed like 2 maps. It's like it feels bad. So being able to just join and get a game in your region is super important for a lot of people.
Yep, and that's where, while I'm sure bots will get improved as time goes on, right? That I think they serve a really good purpose. That for that casual player, like the type of person you mentioned before that comes home from work, jumps on, has a couple of games, they now get to also get a few kills. They get
Should
to have
be
a
nice
bit
for people for once.
They also get to find a game in a relatively quick manner, rather than sit there for 40 minutes, finally get a game, get clapped by Luke 12, and then go to bed.
Yeah,
they're going to have a better experience overall. So when you put it into those perspectives, it's massive success. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the podcast and I'm trying to suck up to you, right?
No, it makes sense. But at the same time, like I understand people that have gripes with it as well. There's no right or wrong. Like we're always going to make certain groups of people upset and certain groups of people happy. There's no way we can please
as
everyone.
A caster, I know that more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just trying to make
everyone.
It's just trying to make the game better for pretty much as many people as we can, while also making it like future-proofing it as much as we can.
It's a bloody tough ask, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I don't envy a lot of the devs half the time. To be fair, some tough decisions that go on.
Last sort of PUBG Corp related question here, but obviously COVID and everything that's been going on in the world, has that affected your work at all, particularly?
For me, I literally never go outside anyway, so it doesn't really affect me at all. I'm just chilling, sitting in my little cave, my little back cave, doing nothing, playing video games and working.
Has it affected PUBG Corp though much? From an outside perspective, I think things have kind of just been rolling along noticeably well.
Because Korea was extremely good at containing COVID. I think they're all back in the office now. Most of the Korean offices, so they're fine. So Korea's kind of was out for a while, and then they got back, and then it's back to normal. But for the NA teams, it's a bit more difficult. Like my entire team, they're all at home because they can't go outside. Same with the New York office, they're all at home now as well. So it's kind of, for the NA teams, it's much more difficult. But for Korea, which is where like a lot of the development comes from, it's not too bad over there. It's all right over there. For me, nothing.
The office over in North America for PGC, was that the only time you had been there?
Yeah, that was the first time I've been there. First time I met my colleagues as well, which was awesome.
In person. It's
now
such a nice
I get to go over there for I know. I don't get to go over there for who knows how long anymore. Feels bad.
That's true. And you haven't been to any of the other offices?
No, I really want to go to Korea, like really badly.
See, I fucked up big time. I should have gone when I was there. I had the offer to go.
To the office?
I didn't go to the office, no, because it was like
the office is sick.
Apparently, it was like a good 20 minutes out or something. Like it wasn't close to where we were.
Should have done it. How dare you?
I should have done it though. I should have done it.
Regrets. No, the office looks sick. I really want to go there.
Unfortunately, I was only in Korea for 5 days. It was not
I
there
didn't
very
get
long.
to go to Korea at all. It was Stephen Hawkins went, and like 2 colleagues went.
Hawkins somehow got his way over there. How did he manage that?
Hawkins?
Yeah.
I don't know how he got there actually. I think they went. Maybe they might have gone on there on a holiday just to go over there while the tournament was going. I was gonna go, but I think we had house stuff, trying to sort out house stuff, so we didn't end up going.
Such a good country. Such a good country. Yeah, I want to go back one day.
Japan and Korea is the only 2 places I want to visit.
Surprisingly, there's a lot of like English on signs and stores and stuff in Korea, so that really helped a lot.
That's good news because I can't speak Korean, so that's fast.
Let's get into some of these questions here as we wrap things up towards the last 20, 30 minutes or whatever. Who was the better Athletico, your roster or the GLR Grand Slam roster?
Was that Zoid's roster?
Zoid, Luke 12, Extreme.
Oh, sorry, I should say Luke 12's roster. Yes, if the team had Luke 12 on it, it was a better team. No, they were Zoid and Co were always better than us, undoubtedly. I mean, they were always the best team in the region. I mean, arguably, you could say Chiefs, I guess, since they qualified for both global events. But yeah, they were definitely better than us. I don't think there's any argument there. Luke 12. One thing I would say is that I filled one tournament for them, like last year, I think. When I was working for PUBG, I just played like a online tournament for them. And I was like, Zoid is the big brains of that team. Like, Zoid does everything. Zoid carries their team because he's like gold RGL. And I played for that team. I had no idea how good Luke was in terms of like calling and like co-calling with Zoid. Like, Luke was insanely good. I thought he was just like nuts in terms of like fragging, but he is by far like the best all-round player I've ever seen. Like, he's nuts, man.
I still remember the day
fragging,
I called him a cheater on stream once.
Oh, did you?
The very early days, I was like, I didn't actually say he was cheating, but I was kind of like, he did something, and I was like, the fuck did he do that? And I was like, nah, this cunt's cheating somehow. Like, I said it in a joking manner, but like, it was just so. I was like, you're nuts. This cunt's nuts. And then I think he changed his name in. I think it was the Shack at the time. I can't remember. He changed it to like G12.
G12. He's a cracked boy.
Yeah,
he's a very cracked boy.
It was a lot of fun seeing him do okay at PGC in the early goings, and then kind of crash out a little bit in Oakland.
Final day, yeah.
You didn't get to come to Oakland, did you?
No, I was there.
You did? Okay,
I was just locked in the basement the whole time because I was dealing with all the Twitch stuff.
I think you came like a day late or something. I remember you stayed behind in LA a little bit longer, I think.
Yeah, I stayed late, but I was there for the first day. I was literally in the basement of the arena, just sitting there on the computer the whole time, which I was just glad I got to go there, to be honest.
Can't complain. Can't complain, really.
I was happy. It was a good event, for sure.
It was an amazing event. I loved it. 3 weeks, getting paid in America was great. I had been to America before. I
never want to go back.
I ate too much. If I go back, I'm gonna be really fat. I'll just say that.
When I got there, when I got to LA, the only places I went to a burger place once. That was with like Paper Thin, who, by the way, is so cool. Have you met Paper?
Yeah, of course.
He's worked with him at nice person I've met.
Korea and PGC.
Oh, you were at that dinner, weren't you? Yeah, you were at the dinner.
I would have been.
We went out to dinner. And then that was the only time I ever left the hotel or the office. I literally went for 2 weeks, I think I was there. I literally only went from my hotel to work.
When we were in Korea, Paper took me and Froz to the back alleys where there wasn't as much English on the signs. We went into this Korean store. No English whatsoever. Because Paper knows a bit of Korean, not too much, but just enough that we could get our food, and it was the best food I've ever had. So I don't even know what it was. I don't know what it was.
Just eating random food. Don't have no idea what I'm eating, but
Don't know what it is. Cooked it. It was good. Yeah, no, good guy. Really good event. Speaking of good though, do you think the region has got good? I'll say it in a more structured manner. Do you think that the state of the Oceanic region has improved since your playing time now to 2020?
Yeah, I think for sure. In terms of players, people have gotten better by far. Like in terms of just raw mechanical skill, people are way better than they were before. Like when I look at my old clips that I thought were good, I'm like, what the hell is that? Dude, that's actually garbage. But in terms of like the scene itself, yeah, I think it's better. Like obviously there's differing opinions, but I think the move from for OCE to join APAC is better for pretty much all of us involved. I mean, it's rough for us because of the ping. Like that's the worst part of it all. But I think in terms of opportunities, it's really good for us. It's the closest we'll get to being able to get better opportunities for everyone, essentially. Like obviously, if you're a Luke 12 or a Tiggleton or a Lynxie, you can go to an NA team if they want willing to fly you over and pay your visa and do all that fun stuff. But in terms of just general accessibility, I think joining APAC is beneficial for the more average player. I think there's a few players in OCE that have joined SEA teams and that are doing pretty well. I think it's better for us overall.
I saw Spaggy on one of the Malaysian teams or something like
that. Yeah. I think it's better. I think it just gives a bit more potential for players than it did before, in my opinion.
More pathways
to
exactly. A better experience.
I mean, you have pathways to NA, but it's much more difficult to get to NA than it would be to SEA, for example. And SEA do offer salaries to teams and stuff like that, which most OC orgs don't. Well,
especially nowadays with COVID affecting everything, North America's
going to be a lot more difficult. A little bubble up there doing, I don't know what they're doing up there, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's special.
But in terms, so you generally believe the quality's better now. Like if you were to take these 2020 teams and chuck them into 2018, they just rinse everyone.
I'd delete everyone 100%. There's no way. I don't think there's any way any team would hold a candle to.
You'd probably have the 2018 teams running around with Car 98s getting slapped.
Yeah, getting slapped
by the SKS because the SLR wasn't in then, if I'm correct.
I don't know.
I don't even think the mini was it even the mini?
Lynxie would be bolting, dude. That was a good old times when Lynxie used to bolting.
Yeah.
Now he's a DMR pleb along with everyone else.
He's converted. He's just a sheep like everyone else.
Shake my head.
There was a time where there was like a meta where you'd have 3 DMRs and then 1 person with a bolty.
I think there's situations where bolties can be okay, but the amount of times where not having a bolty is much more important. Is much better.
Because it was something like if the guy with the bolty gets a knock, then the other 3 guys with the DMRs can quickly finish it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the same scenario, you just need 2 headshots and you've killed them.
Yeah.
And then you can actually flush them straight away as well. It's like, oh no, I didn't headshot him when I flushed him. Got to shoot wait another 16 seconds before I can shoot another bullet.
But they're fun for casual. I think they're still way more fun.
So fun to use.
And you see them all the time in the montages as well.
Yeah, that's when you know the montages are questionable. Just bolty shots the entire time, which is pretty much what all my clips are now. Feels bad because I'm terrible at the game.
You touched on OCE joining APAC and how that is a success. Thoroughly agree with you there. The whole PUBG Continental series and how that's been playing out with the Oceanic teams taking a little bit of time to warm up to it, but now starting to see improvements from where we started at Charity Showdown to the end of PCS 1, with, of course, Fury challenging all the way to the end. How have you seen that as an Oceanic person and APAC representative? Have you enjoyed watching APAC and seeing these teams battle it out?
I think APAC is, in terms of SEA is like a whole nother beast compared to any other region. It seems so much the play styles are so much more unique that I think it's like hard for teams to just adapt when they just go. It's hard for OC teams to instantly adapt when they go into a lobby. But in saying that, at the same time, I think there's like I think we've done pretty well. What did Incog come fourth?
Fourth in the end by like 1 point behind third.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Oh yeah, they were really close to third, right? That's a good showing. Like that's top three, top fours, damn good, man. For like a global event. So obviously they're doing something well. I only think they'll improve, to be fair, especially Astra. I think will get on board. I think there needs to be more like mixed scrims maybe to help get used to the play style. But then I always hear complaints about people not taking scrims seriously and getting strikes. So
Yep.
I don't know what's happening there, but I don't know. I think with time we'll improve. I mean, that was the first tournament we've ever had with like just APAC and SCA. So I think Incog and Astra will start deleting people soon enough.
No, I agree. As we sort of go into PCS2, then what's your predictions? I mean, you say that you think they're going to make this step up. Is it going to happen now?
I don't know. I think that if Incog came fourth last season and they've still got the same roster and they're still going just as hard, I think Incog would be. I'd put Incog above Astra for sure.
You mean Fury? I'll just say Fury. You're talking about Fury.
Jesus Christ, Fury! Yeah, sorry, Fury over Astra. Yeah, just because they just seem to be better internationally. Athletico had their one good event overseas, but I haven't really seen much of them since then. But yeah, definitely think those two teams are the two teams I'd bank everything on. I don't think there's anyone else that I would put money on if I was to say who would qualify. And
what about some wild cards though? If you were like, okay, let's say maybe Astra or Fury just kind of slip up. Like they're the favorites. They're the top two favorites for the two spots, but
I don't really follow like
Team Bliss
or tournaments.
Carnage.
Yeah, Bliss with crit and stuff like that. Who's on Carnage these days?
B2, who I had on the podcast, great guy. They're really improving, and I can't. You put me on the spot here.
Toxic, dude. No,
Toxic.
I think that
forgotten already.
The only people I really know are Team Bliss, to be honest, and
Carnage are a good team.
I don't know how much they practice, but they're always up there. But I honestly think that Incog and Astra will just win it pretty much, win the quals. Hopefully they do good when they get out there as well. Praying.
And hopefully, in the Malaysia-Singapore quals, hopefully Bay could take that out.
Oh, actually, true. Sorry, Bay. Yes, Bay. Very, very good. But that's not OCE, really.
Well, they're not OCE. So yeah, they're fighting for their own one spot.
Get them
out. What are your thoughts on that, though? I think they made the right decision.
To play in the Malaysia ones?
Yeah.
You should always play in the easier lobby. 100%. There's no denying that.
I was watching a bit of Flood actually from his POV of the
do you hear
qualifiers, and the chewing is like,
oh my god! I literally had to mute his stream like 2 seconds.
Guys, I can't find any loot in my sugar. There's no loot. Sophia, have you got any loot? That was like literally the first 10 minutes of the game that I watched, but they just stomped the shit out of that. Like it was not close. Like second was not even close.
Yeah, I think they definitely should take the easier lobby. So they're in a pretty good situation. You can just get free qualifiers pretty much.
And then that to me, like, because originally, right, when we had 3 slots and there was no Malaysia slot, of course, that's why Bay moved their operations to OCE, was because there was that 3rd slot. In reality, now it's like they got Flood, they got Neff, there's 2 Aussies on that team. Like, to me, when I'm going to be casting PCS2 APAC, if they're there, to me, there's 3 OCE teams there.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, for you, it would feel like it. For another SCA caster, I guess it would feel like they're from SCA because they have 2 SCA players on their team. But yeah, I don't know. That's another ruling that I think is good, being able to play 2-2 on a roster.
I like the 2-2. I think that it's because you can do it both ways. You could have, like, I don't know, let's say there's a world where Astra split up and then like Zoid and Extreme are like, fuck it, let's go get these 2 Malaysians and we'll go stomp that lobby. Like, and then Bay come back.
Yeah,
You
I
can
mean,
do
they could,
crazy shit
sure.
with. I don't think do they have. I'm pretty sure it's 2-2 in like North America as well, isn't it? Or is
I'm
it
not too
1? Is it
sure.
still just 1?
I imagine that it's probably similar. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to confirm. I imagine it's the same, but I could be wrong.
I know Officer Nick 101 is trying his luck.
Why is he called Officer Nick?
Because he's got to
pulling
arrest
up?
everyone in North America for acting up. Him,
Yeah,
Hambino.
Hambino is nuts, dude. Also, I met
Yeah.
Hambino at PGI. He's super nice, dude. I don't know how Nick's a lovely guy as well. And
Like, how did Nick get on his team?
no, because Hambino like doesn't ever swear and is like super nice and
Yeah,
super
he was
polite,
saying that.
and then
Nick
Nick's
was saying
like
that.
super nice but always swears and is little toxic at times in a nice way.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be. I would like to hear their comms sometimes, to be honest.
Well, I'm just curious to follow their journey into the
Yeah,
Challenger series, and then eventually, at some point, of course, they'll be fighting to try and qualify for PCS. That'd be cool to see Nick battling it out with Tiggleton and Luke,
yeah.
like invading North America.
The OC Warriors destroying
Yeah.
NA. That's what I like to see.
So, in terms of, I asked you predictions about, the Oceania teams qualifying for PCS2. As we wrap this up, do you know much about the other teams, like the actual APAC tournament that's coming up? You wouldn't have a pick?
I know Duckmans, and that's it.
He has not been playing in
Duckmans
PCS.
hasn't done anything, dude. It feels
He's
bad.
not. He's regressed. He's not 2019 Duckman anymore.
2019 Duckmans was the best.
The new Duckman is Yoshi Minburi.
Who?
Yoshi Minburi for MSC Theraton. He was the Thailand MVP going into PCS 1, and he was considered like the new Duckman. He shit the bed in PCS 1, which was unfortunate because the rest of his team actually did very well. But apparently they actually are now back-to-back Thailand champions for the first time in any of the Thailand series. So they're coming in probably as one of the favorites. Buriram United is going to be up there as well. And funnily enough, now that's happened twice, whoever's won APAC, like Charity Showdown APAC and PCS 1 APAC, the winners of that have not been able to qualify for the next event. So Division X Gaming won Charity Showdown. They didn't make it to PCS 1. And Q Confirm, who then
deleted everyone, right?
Deleted everyone. They were by far the favorites and they were the best team. They left Q Confirm. They joined Attack All Round and they didn't qualify. So
QC didn't qualify.
They didn't qualify.
Ooh. Yeah, I have no idea what goes on.
So the crown, the throne, is once again vacant and going to be taken by
Duckman. He's coming back.
Well, no, Duckman didn't qualify. Clutch.
Oh, shit. No one's qualified. Everyone's gone, dude. Oh, OC is in, then. We win.
We win
by default.
There are a couple of teams. Though. I think Buriram United certainly is going to be fighting for it. Golden Cat, Fury. I think are my 3 favorites that I'll be predicting. I think you need to study up on your APAC knowledge, Clutch.
I need to study up on my APAC.
It's the best region, mate. It's the best region.
All I care about is my boys Astra and Incognito. I'm not calling them Fury. I'm just calling them Incognito. Incognito. And Fury.
Incog till you die. You've been there since day one. OG.
I was the OG Incog. The Incog boys to me.
Oh God, clutchy. God, I was going to say something and I've completely forgotten, and it's something that's not something that I usually do. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what I was going to say.
It's so dark in my room. I just realized.
Oh, I see. So, did you know that the APAC region is the most viewed region?
Oh, because of SEA? Yeah, SEA's viewership is nuts.
It's even more than the Asia PCS.
I doubt it would be bigger than China, right? There's no way.
Someone did the numbers.
There's no way it's bigger.
It's not by much. I'll say that.
There's no way it's bigger than China. Is huge. SEA is big.
Trying to do fudge their numbers. Although I'd probably say SCA probably fudged their numbers too a little bit. Hey,
think
the
China-
Thailand stream though is nuts. The Thailand stream was like 70k viewers alone.
Yeah. When you watch when you see in the Twitch directory and on YouTube and stuff, SCA goes hard for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, it's up there. Look, maybe the infographic I saw was maybe fudged. I don't know. There's an asterisk next to it. I don't know if it's the official numbers. But if it's not first, it's definitely second.
Yeah, I think SCA would be pretty big for sure.
It's definitely bigger than North America and definitely bigger than Europe.
Bigger than OCE.
Well, no, OCE is a part of it. We just hold on. Hey,
we are right. We can claim that we have.
We can claim it, man. Best region. We're not OCE anymore. We're just APAC, right?
We're
so
APAC.
like we just leech. And I've been saying to quite a few people, like these teams, Astra, for instance, you know, like Extreme messaged me the other day and he's like, hey, do you know any orgs? And I was like, go to an SEA org. Get an SEA org.
I'm surprised that many SEA orgs haven't reached out, to be honest. Or people, I don't know if people
I think the method of communicating between the two parties is where there's probably going to be some time, right? Because like Extreme's like, well, do you know any SEA orgs? I was like, I don't fucking know any SEA orgs. Like, how are then these guys meant to know SEA orgs?
Yeah, it's tough, but I mean, you have to get 2 SEA players. So, I mean, unless they want to get an org for themselves, but I don't know.
Well, you don't have to get any of the players. Like from
you don't. You could get an org, but I don't know. It depends. I mean,
like Q Confirm, for instance. Q Confirm have stated they're apparently picking up a roster again after the shenanigans that happened with their old roster that actually won PCS. Why wouldn't if I'm Astra, I'm like, hey, we're going to probably qualify through Oceania. We're going to be playing in PCS APAC. We're going to be playing in front of all of these viewers that your shitty Thailand team would probably play in front of anyway.
I think that for SEA, it's a much more like fan. Like you look at Myths fans, dude. Like I think the orgs would have more of a fan base than the players, so they probably want an all SEA team as opposed to
Myth keep failing to qual for PCS.
Doesn't matter. Like they're still only ever gonna get SEA players because their fan base is all SEA. If you suddenly hire a bunch of these random people from OC, they'll probably be like, "What the hell are you doing? Get out!
That's
Get out
true.
of our region."
That is true. But I think instead of like those massive like Armory Gaming or Myth, I don't see those sort of organizations wanting to.
Yeah, maybe QC. I mean, I'm sure people have reached out. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't have reached out yet. Maybe they have. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why they can't.
Like, I'd be just asking like the Bay guys, like, what are your contacts? You know, help us out here.
Reach out, Zenox. Get it started, mate. Either one.
I don't need the fucking org. I'm the visionary. I see where things can go for these teams because that's all I want. I just want the best for these teams.
Fair enough. Like it's my old dad.
I'll take a commission
though.
Zenox. Once the SEA orgs start flowing in, I want my commission.
You reckon?
I want all. Well, you know what? They could probably offer.
Now that I discuss it with you, it's for me now as well.
I reckon they could probably offer salary that's something that these OCE players want that they're not going to get from OCE orgs.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely think it would be better to get an SEA org if you could, or any org that would offer a salary. It doesn't matter which one. Any salary is better than no salary, Zenox. That's what I always say.
That is true. We don't want to be homeless. Let's wrap this up though, because you are almost about to be enveloped by the darkness.
Yeah, it's time for dinner, I think.
That has fallen upon you. Shoutouts and thankyous, Clutch.
Shoutouts and thankyous. Shout out to my boys, Neff, Hef, Linksy, and Mango for being big cuties. Shout out to my workmates. There's a lot of them, but there's CC, Hawkins, Sheepy, Steve, or everyone else. There's too many to mention, but those are the main ones. I don't really have much else to say. Thank you for watching, everyone. Hopefully you don't abuse me after this. Please be nice to me. I have feelings. And thank you, Zenox, for having me on board. I really appreciate it.
You're a big cutie. Big cutie. Can I get a final? Perfect. Stay Clutch.
Later, mate.